Oh my God, it is freezing, worse than yesterday. My heater isn't even really able to keep up. So I will have to let the garage warm up for a little bit, but I just wanted to fill you in on what's going on. And yes, I know, I realize I look absolutely ridiculous, but this is a matter of survival. I've got to stay warm here. But you know what? We were talking yesterday about a professional appearance, and I admit, this may not be the most professional appearance at all. So let me go ahead and fix that real quick so that I'm not distracting. Okay, much better, much better. Gosh, if the people I'm fixing cars for saw that I watched the Disgruntled Mechanics channel, they'd never bring their stuff back to me again. All right, what we are going to do today is we've got a couple things going on here. As you know, we need to work on the parasitic draw today as one of our things, and hopefully get rid of this car today when our part comes in for the tensioner. So for the parasitic draw, let's take a look at this car. Okay, this is a Hyundai Elantra. We can see pretty new looking battery here. And what's going on with this, as I mentioned in the last video, the guy says pretty much every day when his daughter goes to start the car, the battery is dead and they have to jump start it, and it jump starts just fine. The only thing that I did is at the O'Reilly store, I did take a quick look at it with my DVOM and determined that the alternator works, and invited them to drop it off to me and see if we can duplicate the problem. So the car's been sitting overnight here. Okay, a couple things I did actually off camera because it was just too freaking cold to record here. But I had the idea to go ahead and measure amperage over time with the battery, just to have a amp measurement and come into the garage every once in a while and check to see if we start having a parasitic draw. I was not able after a couple hours to see any kind of a parasitic draw. And to be honest with you, I just kind of gave up on it because it was just getting too cold. And even if I did find a parasitic draw, the idea that I'm going to set up the camera and film the catch of that, not going to happen right now. So what we're going to do instead, I just let the car sit overnight. I just turned on the heat in the garage now. So before it gets too warm, I think what we'll do is a couple things. Let's see if the battery has lost any voltage overnight. Maybe we never had the parasitic draw problem. And if we do find that there's some drop on the voltage on the battery, I want to use my thermal camera and see if we can get a really good standout of any modules or systems that may have current flow through them, and we'd be able to see that through their heat signature. Okay, I've been very careful not to open the door or do anything to turn anything on since last night. So this is how it's been sitting. Let's go ahead and set this up where you can see it. All right, obviously did things like check the tightness of the terminals and everything like that, and they're all real tight. That can definitely cause that issue as you get connection and then not connection, and connection and not connection, and connection and not connection, and it keeps draining the battery as you turn the modules on and off all night. Don't think that's going to be our issue, at least at the battery connections. All right, we have 12.26. It does not appear that we have had the parasitic draw overnight. So what we're going to do is probably maybe set up a battery test on here to catch what happens when I start the car, see if we get a big voltage drop or something like that. I don't have any reason to think that we are going to find any kind of parasitic draw using my thermal camera with this. I do believe what I'm going to do is just try to start the car real quick, see if it starts. Maybe we can catch the voltage drop on the meter on when that happens. It won't be as good as doing it with a scope or something fancier, but at least it'll give us an idea. Wow, it started right up, no problem. We can see the alternator works. Let's try that again. Okay, and turning it off, we see it jumps right to 12.63, which I like. All right, well, as we saw, it just dropped to about 10.8 very briefly. The car started right up right away. We see we've got alternator activity. We got a little bit of a variable that it's really cold here, but the 10.8, that is pretty much what I'm used to seeing. As a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's just go over to this car next to it and the battery on the car next to it is actually older, if anything. And let's just see what the voltage drop shows on another car given these temperature conditions we have. Okay, I do this all the time, and I can tell you that this is not a battery problem. This one we got a little bit more of a starting charge, and this is going to drop down pretty much 10.8, start right up. Now we won't see the alternator on this one because of course we don't have the serpentine belt, but I'm just worried about what the battery voltage shows during the cranking. Okay, well, as we can see, they were completely identical. This is not a battery problem. It's not a battery connection problem with dirty terminals or something like that. There could be a number of variables here. And also, we want to not put beyond that this also could be user error, maybe accidentally leaving something on all the time. And now recently they turned it off. Remember, they said that this problem popped up, and for 2 weeks straight, they had to jump start it every time. But then before bringing the car over to me, that day they didn't have to jump start it, and we haven't had to do that today either. So that's 2 days in a row where we have not had the issue now after 2 weeks of consecutively having it. It could just be that they left something on and then turned it off, or maybe I turned it off when I was looking at the car, checking for anything that was on. There's all kinds of possibilities that there could not even be an issue here. So what do you do here? Because we certainly don't want to return the car back and then have it die, especially in this type of freezing cold weather. So I think what I'm going to do, I think my best bet is to go ahead and hook up an amp clamp to the car, and then let's take a look at the parasitic draw and see if we can wiggle some things around or whatever. And we're going to look for something. If it's been dying overnight, and we've had pretty mild weather over the last 2 weeks up until a couple days ago, it's got to be something that's drawing at least half an amp if it's going to kill the battery overnight like that. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll just see what we can find. But, what can you do? Okay, so what we're going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and set up 2 channels just to be thorough. One for voltage. We can see if we magically get like a cell drop on the battery out of nowhere or something, which isn't going to happen because it would have happened last night. And then the other channel, we're going to do the amperage and look and see if we get something that turns on at any time. Right now, we really don't have a lot to go on. Okay, this is really cool. This is a nice 30 amp probe that has a wide jaw on it, kind of a little counterintuitive, but it's going to be really nice for this particular setup that we're doing. One of the other things that it'll have a battery saver on it, so to bypass that, just need to hold the 0 button down while I turn it on, and that'll keep this on permanently. Otherwise, it shuts off after a few minutes. Let's see, we need to get our orientation right. We need positrons in this direction. That means it's got to go upside down here. And very important that the jaws close all the way when you use these clamps like this. And that's the nice thing about this wide jaw clamp is we can have them close all the way even around these battery terminals. All right, we now want to get channel A set up. That's just going to be regular voltage here. It's really funny, when I first ever saw a scope like on YouTube video, it was such sorcery in the idea that I would ever use a scope. I've even mentioned that in my videos, as many of you know. And then once you get the scope, learning how to use it and how to set it up and everything. And my fingers are too cold to control the mouse pad. Going through the learning curve where I made all these books full of notes on how to set things up for different things. But then after a while, when you really start understanding this, you already know what you're going to do. Like, I don't need to look up how to set up the scope for various things, because I know what I'm looking for. I know how the scope works. Really, my electrical knowledge really exponentially grew after I started using a scope. So I really recommend you guys consider that. All right, we're gonna go here, go to picoscope. Okay, we're gonna go 20 volts on our battery voltage scale. And I just wanna turn on parking lights or something like that. Make sure we can notice anything. Make sure everything's working. Just turn the parking lights on. We see a little tiny bit of a dip there. You guys probably aren't even seeing this. I'll zoom in for you a little. Okay, and this is really weird. There's like a 3-second delay between my computer here and my television screen. Obviously something with the cold temperature going on here. Anyway, we can see right over here, we can see the little dip from when I tested to turn the lights on. Obviously, if we see a dip of a couple of volts, we are going to blame the battery. If that just suddenly drops out of nowhere, that would be a bad battery, a shorted cell. What we want to do now is go over here. That is so weird. That's like a 10-second delay. Okay, that's just weird. That's annoying. Let me get you back on the computer. Okay, that's really bad when your screen mirroring has a 10-second delay, apparently due to the temperature here. Want to go to our 30 amp probe. Uh-oh, and my computer crashed. Yeah, my computer does not like this cold, it seems. All right, I may have to come back after the garage warms up a little bit, but my computer is not happy right now. Yeah, let me come back after I get this figured out. Okay, this is wild. The computer runs better if I do put it onto the outlet power instead of running off the battery, but it still has now like a 2-second delay on my screen mirroring. All right, let's get back up to, let's try about a 20-second scale, I think should be good on the time division. And we want 20 volts here. All right, and then on channel B, we're gonna go 30 amp clamp. And we'll pull up just about an amp, I think would be a good scale there. Voltage right now is 12.33. Amperage will be over here, and we are really, really high right now for some reason. 619 milliamps. Is that right? If that was right, we would be seeing a voltage drop. So my clamp may not be reading correctly here. Maybe I didn't zero it. Okay, so I see the issue. What did I say earlier about how important it is that the jaws be completely closed and the jaws are very slightly pressed open here? If I squeeze the jaws shut myself, we see we come up to just about somewhere around 100 milliamps right now. So user error there, you got to be really careful. All right, normally I just edit stuff like this out where the clamp wasn't all the way around the wire or something, but this time I'm not filming, so I'm showing you what actually happens. Sometimes some of the little things that you oversee, and it's kind of a good lesson here actually to show that just because it looks like the clamps were closed around my positive terminal here. Did I say negative terminal earlier? I don't remember. I may have misspoke. This is the positive terminal, and the jaws just don't totally reach all the way around, gave me a false reading. So we're going to go around the battery negative, and let me zero my clamp. I want to make sure we're going in the flow of positron direction here. That is definitely closed all the way. Let's go ahead and now take a look at our computer. Okay, why did I turn it off? That was stupid. Okay, let's get 30 amp current clamp. Let's go to a 1 amp scale. Okay, and now we can go over here, bring down our red side reading, and we can see we are at about 17 milliamps. All right, that is a far more realistic reading. All right, just want to open the car door to make sure that we can read a difference. We can see a big difference with the amperage there. Close the door. That may take a second, again, because you got modules that get activated when you open the door or turn on the ignition or whatever. While we're waiting for that, let's see if we can get a reading of what that jumped up to. Should be about 0.5 amp or so, I would imagine. No, only 100 milliamps it went up to. And actually, now that I think about it, maybe the dome light doesn't come on. Let me open that door again. Yeah, no dome light or anything. So that just turns on some kind of minor module, but you can see we can detect changes. Now, even that, like if the door wasn't shutting all the way or something, with only 100 milliamps, I don't think the battery would die overnight. Let's see if that actually ever goes back down. Yep, there it goes just now. Right back down. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is see if I can get this amperage to jump up, ideally to about right up here, maybe about 0.5 amp or so, which would indicate a definite parasitic draw that would absolutely cause the battery to die overnight. So I'm going to wiggle some harnesses around. Nothing happening with these harnesses. This is not a problem at or with the battery for sure. So I'm going to follow some of these battery harnesses around, wiggle these harnesses. You can see absolutely nothing is happening. Alternator is a good one too. I'm going to wiggle the connectors for the alternator. Sometimes a bad alternator can cause a parasitic drain, just the alternator itself. Don't see that that's happening. I'm going to wiggle around all these harnesses here. Whoa, what did I just, oh, okay. The screen just refreshed. I thought I found something. Got excited for a second, but we just ran off the end of the screen. We're still reading exactly the same. Get these lines out of the way here. Actually, they're kind of annoying. You see our battery voltage has not budged in the slightest this whole time. Okay, again, I'm banging around on the fuse box here. Maybe a loose fuse or something. And I tell you, I cannot get any change in that amperage at all. Nothing. Okay, so one of the things is it's possible that this issue could be something with the interior of the car, maybe. This car is 4-door. We're going to check all the doors are actually locked. So I don't think we've got like a loose door open or anything like that. We can try banging on the doors, banging on the trunk. Maybe a loose trunk lid causing the trunk light to turn on. Actually had 2 cars with that issue recently. Yeah, I just actually had a car come in where the alarm would just go off all by itself in the middle of the night at random sometimes. And it turned out the trunk latch, there's a sensor that knows when the trunk is closed, and that sensor was failing. It would make it look like somebody had opened the trunk while the alarm is set. So things like that you want to look for. I am not having a lot of luck on the exterior of the car. Open the door again. That's going to jump our little minor amperage flow as we turn on whatever module that is. I'm going to see, is there a fuse box here in the car? Yes, there it is. Going to bang on this fuse box. Maybe a loose fuse. Nothing. Nothing at all. There's some things you want to look at like this over here. Okay, so if we look, we've got this sunglass storage thing in the dashboard here that the lid doesn't work. And that's not going to be our issue. There's no light or anything, but if there was like a light on the lid or something, things like this you can find all the time. Another real common one can be a lighted vanity mirror here. This one's not lighted at all. Check the other one. Lighted vanity mirrors like this, if the cover is broken, then the mirror light can be on, and newer vehicles will detect that and they'll turn it off after a period of time. But an older vehicle, that could just stay on all night. Let's see, it looks like we got some lights here. Those don't work. Huh, what about this one? All right, and let's see, it was already in the off position anyway, but something like that where maybe it was in the on position and there's some loose connection and sometimes that will turn on. Not an issue there. Does any light work in here? Yeah, that one does. Let's see, there's dome light here that didn't come on with the door, but it looks like they have that turned off. It works. Let's set it to this position, open the door, now it turns on. My guess is they turned that off. Let's just make sure that that does turn off though. Maybe that was an issue. Check around for anything else. I don't see anything else here. Glove box is another one. Glove box does not have a light in it. If the glove box has a light, obviously a loose lock there could be an issue. Right now our light just dimmed out. Okay, so that works properly. I'm going to go ahead and leave that on though, just in case this is a problem with the door lock and that was our issue and maybe it'll show up or something. We want to create every possibility where this issue could happen. And that means turning on these little vanity lights here, see if those come on at any point by themselves. I have nothing to go on. Another thing to also check from the car here, we can see that we've caused all kinds of activity there, turning those lights on and everything, going off the scale, but we are right back to normal again, and refresh the screen. But as I was saying, another thing to look at, a loose ignition switch. I actually had a car a few years ago where a loose ignition switch, you would take the key out of the car, but the dashboard lights were still on. Drains the battery pretty quickly. That is not an issue with this car. The ignition switch feels totally fine. All right, we see with turning the ignition switch on, we of course create a rather significant jump in amperage there. But we see that we're starting to step down as the modules turn off. Turning on an ignition switch turns pretty much everything on. There goes another module that just turned off, and another one. And eventually, I am sure that's going to go right back down to our baseline. All right, we'll check that in a couple minutes. I have nothing to go on here. Another thing, you'll want to check the radio. If there's an aftermarket radio system, that's usually the first thing that I'll look at. Any kind of hardwired GPS, radar detectors, things like that. This is all stock as can be. So I don't see anything. Oh, just now our amperage turned back to the baseline again. I cannot get a parasitic draw to happen on this vehicle. Possible it could be a bad starter. Maybe we're totally barking up the wrong tree. But every time I've started the car, we've not had any issue. It doesn't appear to be a starter problem. And again, the jump start works the first time, every time. They also say that things like the lights don't turn on, the dashboard doesn't light up when you turn the key. Really indicates a battery problem. The owner of this car, by the way, is an electrician, a home electrician. So I think he's familiar enough. What do you do here, guys? You know, sorry, this is kind of a crappy video, I realize, but we got nothing to go on. All right, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and let it cook, and we'll come back in a few minutes and see if something happened. All right, well, we've been letting this go for quite a bit, and I can't see any problem here. So let's see, what do we got here? It's just about noon now, which means that my other part for the car that is waiting on the tensioner should be in a few minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to a longer time frame just a little bit here. All right, we've got a new buffer set here. So I'm just going to let this cook while I go to the parts store, and then we'll come back and see if we find anything happened here. So I'm going to run to the parts store and I will be right back. Yeah, one of those days again. All right, so I went to the auto parts store. They didn't have the part in. They were expecting it like any minute. I decided to go run some errands, things like that, get lunch. About an hour or something later, go back to the auto parts store. Still, the part hasn't arrived yet. So Yeah. So they say they'll call me when it comes in, and that means we've had at least an hour now to look at our parasitic drain situation. I can look at the computer screen here and see that we don't seem to have caught anything. Let's take a look. All right, we just refreshed another screen. It looks like during the whole time I was gone, we captured 9 screens here. Let's go back to the previous screen. Nothing, 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 nothing. Absolutely no evidence of a parasitic drain here whatsoever after quite a bit over an hour. Yeah, the only thing that's really worked out now is that at least the garage warmed up some while I was gone. But I think in this case, I've got the car through the end of the day, and then I'm just going to tell them pick it up tonight, and I just wasn't able to find anything. Sometimes other things that can be helpful with this is maybe this is some kind of user error that is causing this parasitic drain, something being left on. Sometimes maybe if you have the owner drive the car and kind of look at their habits that they're doing. There's a really good example of this, and I'm not going to mention any names here, so the viewer that knows about this, don't worry, we're not going to embarrass anybody, but I was contacted by a viewer from Texas who says that his daughter, who lives here in Colorado, is having some kind of a weird transmission problem, and he thought that maybe I would be able to take a look at it because nobody else, of course, was able to find any issue or anything. And he says that sometimes what would happen is the transmission would apparently be the issue, and it would fail, and the car might rev really, really, really high, much higher than normal. And also, if the car comes to a stop, it's really labored in getting the car to get up to speed. But this wouldn't happen all the time. So I told him, yeah, go ahead and put me in contact with your daughter. We'll take a look at it. I take a look at the car, can't really find anything wrong, no check engine codes, nothing. So I go ahead and I drive the car for a little bit. I'm driving the car. I absolutely see nothing wrong, and she agrees that it seems to be behaving. Of course it does. When you bring it to the guy that's going to fix it, it never acts up, right? So then I thought, well, let's see if maybe possibly it's something that she's doing. So I asked her to go ahead and drive the car. So she goes ahead, she starts driving the car. We're driving around for a while. Absolutely no issue. She's kind of beside herself. I'm so sorry I wasted your time. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. We'll just head back and maybe it'll happen more consistently. So on the way back, she decides to turn on the air conditioner. It was summer at the time. When she goes to turn on the air conditioner, she reaches for the gear shifter and moves it to the right to kind of clear the way that she can access the air conditioning controls a little bit better. As most of you guys know, a lot of cars now have that sort of pseudo manual shift thing where if you move the shift lever over, you can move it up or down to go up or down gears, kind of like a manual transmission. She moves the shift over to the right, she changes the air conditioning settings and continues to drive. And of course, I'm like, what? There's the issue. And so I pointed out to her, and she did not realize that that was a feature on the car. She actually thought it was to be able to clear the way that it's easier to access the controls for the HVAC. So I tell her, go ahead, just leave it in that position. And sure enough, as we come off to a stoplight, we get to the stoplight, and then the car is very, very, very sluggish to go because the car was in third gear. Obviously, if she was to do this while the car was at the red light, well, then the car would be stuck in first gear, and she would notice that the car would move along, but it would rev really, really, really high. Yeah, she was very embarrassed, to say the least, very embarrassed. And her dad and I had a good laugh when I got back with him and let him know what I found. But the moral of that story there is, in a case like this very well could be some kind of a operator error. And maybe when the young lady comes by, she's just got her driver's license. Maybe when she comes by, I'll ask her to go ahead and maybe drive around the block, observe if she does anything, that she leaves something on that would have caused the drain. So that's the only thing that I can do. All right, other than that, I think what I'm going to do is show you the after when I finally get this tensioner and fix this car, just so that you can see that it is fixed. I know you guys like to see that. And then we'll see what else may come in. But sorry if this is a really boring video, but this is why most of the time I'll start the camera, I'll do stuff like this, and then I come to find, oh, it's just a bad pulley. And I never make the video because I know most of you guys don't want to see a broken pulley. But I'm just trying to show you what it looks like on kind of an average weekend here. It's not always as much fun as what it seems with most of the videos. All right, we'll come back after I get my part, and I'll just leave this cooking on the screen here. Just might as well, just in case something miraculous happens. We'll come back in a bit. Yes, what a freaking mess. This is actually normally how it goes. So right now it's 4:30 p.m. Still don't have the part for this Toyota over here that needs the tensioner. Nothing showing up over on that Hyundai with the parasitic draw. So like there's nothing I can do. And I've got one more car for this series lined up that maybe this will be a good one, probably not. But it's got a issue with a heater, doesn't seem to work properly. Obviously, we're thinking thermostat, but we'll need to diagnose that one. That will be tomorrow. Right now, I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and end this video for today because I'm done for the day. I will get that tensioner hopefully at some point tonight, show you the final fix here. I believe they're going to come to pick up the Hyundai because there's just nothing I can do. And maybe I'll drive around with the owner's daughter and see if I can find if something is going on with that. If there is, I'll let you know. But we'll try to get these cars out of here and then start fresh tomorrow with our final car of the weekend. So sorry if this sucks, guys. But again, this is just reality TV here at its most real. All right, we'll come back tomorrow and finish up this series with one more car and update you on what happened with these guys.